Okay, so here we are. I'm joining today from the beautiful, unceded, stolen traditional territories of the Shishalt Nation, the Shishalt peoples, who've been here where I live for many, many generations, taking care of this beautiful place at the edge of mountains and shorelines and ocean. And I'm very, very blessed and lucky to be a visitor in this place. And we're all coming from really different places in the world today, and we're going to spend time really exploring what that means. What is a theory of change that's deeply rooted in context, especially when working to change institutions that are often the products of colonization in the places where many of us live. So we're going to be exploring some of these topics. So I wanted to just introduce you to our hosting team for this this project. Francisca's here today, Stefan is here, Pavand, Maggie are here. Our other friends are sleeping probably. But we're pleased to be hosting you in this community of practice where we're exploring a bunch of topics related to pushing the boundaries of public sector innovation in all the different things that means to us. So we're pleased that you found your way in to join us today, and this is us warmly welcoming you into this space with us. This community of practice is a journey that started only a month or two ago, and so we're in the early stages, halfway through this first cycle focused on theories of change. In February, we'll begin our second cycle, hosted by Penny Hagen and Lily Raphael, focused on connecting inner and outer transformation work. And we'll soon have the dates available for those. And then the rest is still unfolding as we go, but it will take us through until about this time next year, where we'll do some sense making about what pushing the boundaries of public innovation means at this time. So this is where you are in this looping path. And today, our program today is just will help us all arrive. We'll hear from Isabelle from some experiences she's had running a program in Réunion Island. And then we'll have some discussion on a couple of prompts. I'll just share those with you. They're changing a little bit as we prepare for the day, and they may change between now and when we choose them. But we'll be asking you a couple questions in discussion with each other a little bit later. So I'll read these now, and then you can kind of hold them as you're listening to Isabelle. So the first one will be around responsibility. Do we think that public sector innovators of all types have a responsibility to work in contextually appropriate ways that relate to reconciliation? And where Maggie will unpack some of these terms for us before we get going, because they mean really different things in different places. So that'll be part of what we're doing at the beginning. The second discussion question will be about moving from theories of change to reality. And when we think about context-based theories of change, where are the highest impact leverage points that public innovators can try to move? So that will be our second discussion. And depending on how the timing goes, we may have a third, which is hearing some news from the ground, some context-based stories and examples of practices from the places where you are as they relate to this intersection of theories of change for public innovation in place-based ways that are tending to reconciliation. So that's our plan for today. And I wanted to just remind us a little bit here about what is a theory of change. We talked about this last time too, and Stefan and his team have written a blog post that you can read more about theories of change and find some other resources there. If this is a term that's not so familiar for you, or maybe we learned last time when that theories of change can have different names in different places, but essentially do the same things. In Nantes, they're calling them markers as an idea about what theories of change might be. But the basics are that we have a vision of where we're trying to go, in this case, this is a joke, this example. Maybe some of you are familiar with this kind of ambition of having an outcome that's like ending world hunger and running a very small activity, small feeling activity, like a lunch subsidy program. Often what happens with theories of change is that we're missing the steps in the middle. In the public sector, I find that we often don't make those explicit or clear, what those steps are in the middle. So really that's what we're playing with, is what is a theory of change for public innovation? And then here in this community of practice, what are some more radical, transformative, ambitious versions of theories of change at work in the public sector? So hopefully we're warmed up a little, remembering what theories of change are. And with that, I'll hand it over to Stefan and maybe Georgia to remind us of where we are in the specific theories of change part of our process.
Yeah, so good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, we have some issue with the audio. Okay. Okay.
I think Lindsay, your mic is
on. Actually, when Stefan and me thought about how to represent our idea of change, we came up with this metaphorical representation which will guide us through this cycle of sessions on theory of change. And actually, the idea is that at the basis of change, we can have a theory of many theories of change, which is a non-linear path made of different trajectories that we can push and initiate to tackle wicked problems. Actually, our discussion revolves around the problems that are more complex, so we call them wicked. And the idea is that this path is nourished by an energy, a lifeblood made of participation, experimentation, and training, which are some crucial aspects that we can question and discuss about, and that we will use as a guide during this cycle on theory of change. Actually, these are ingredients which in our idea are necessary to question and change the dominant systems and also the systems of domination, which are a sort of rock, and also beneath these systems of domination, also the values and beliefs that we have to question and change in order to pursue our outcome, our goal. So Stefan is going to present our idea of the 3 sessions using this representation.
Yeah. So last time for the first session, we started from the ground, like Georgia said. We started from the roots, and we have this example from the city of Nantes, who has created his own way to build theory of change that they call markers. And if you weren't part of it, you can. There is a record session, so you can find the link on the right. I think that was really inspiring to see how a city can build its own theory of change. Today we will have, so the next slide, we will have Isabelle, who with more between dominant system and values. We will see how with the using training activities, she tried to build, to change the visions between dominated and dominant situation in island of La Réunion. But I will tell a bit more when I introduce Isabelle a bit later. And the next one, we hope, because we don't have the precise date today, we would like to start from the wicked problems with the following hypothesis, is that we think that we miss qualitative public debate, democratic debate when we build theory of change, because things are very polarized those days, because there are many big challenges where there is no no democratic debate or not enough democratic debate. So how do we fight against the risk of what we call in France dépolitisation? I think in English you said depoliticization. So how can we struggle around that to build more democratic theory of change in a way? So that would be our next session in January. And today, next slide. No, yeah, maybe yeah.
Yes, merci Stéphane. So we wanted to before we dive into the conversation with and introduce Isabelle, we wanted to provide a little bit of context and invite some curiosity about reconciliation, contextual work, context-based and place-based practice. So Maggie is going to share some thoughts about that, and then we'll put you in some pairs to have a little bit of discussion about your own context and some of the words that we're using today to make sure that we're all kind of ready for that. So welcome, Maggie. I put salmon in here to welcome you.
Thank you. I love salmon. Hello, everyone. Bonjour. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am also going to do my best to speak slowly in English and just say how appreciative I am that English is not everyone's first language here, and there's the generosity of being able to all learn together in English as a gift. So thank you. My name is Maggie Low, and I am an assistant professor at the University of British Columbia, and I'm calling in and joining you from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. I'm on the unceded lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. And I also am Indigenous. I have mixed Indigenous and European ancestry. One of the things that I'm loving about this project is that it is international, and we're learning things from different places around the world, and also cross-cultural. And it's very exciting to be part of these types of conversations, particularly around public sector innovation, because we're all facing very big and serious, complex, wicked problems. So this also means that we are coming from different contexts and understandings of place. And so this can be closely related, can be closely related to many Indigenous teachings here in Canada that really look at knowledges that come from a specific place and from a specific types of knowledges that are rooted in place. And that means different ways of knowing. And there's different ways of knowing from across the world. It also means that we use different languages oftentimes, and different words that have different meanings. And we're hoping that we can kind of unpack some of these words to understand what they mean, and kind of bring in our common understanding and our common experiences. So for example, here in Canada, without going into too much history or detail, the settler colonial state of Canada, here, the word reconciliation has become a very popular word and practice, and I would say in the last 10 years. And it has many meanings to many different people, both Indigenous people here in Canada and non-Indigenous people. And it really is around the relationship between the Canadian government and Indigenous peoples here in Canada. And so today, what I'm so excited to do is to be curious to hear about what is happening in other contexts, in other places, and what the word reconciliation or other words that are closely related, what they mean in different places. So I just wanted to put that out there, and I'm really looking forward to today's session. And I'll hand it back over to Lindsay.
Thank you, Maggie. So we'll just invite you to be generous and curious with each other as we explore some sometimes controversial, heated terms in multiple languages, in multiple contexts. We'll default to kindness and generosity and understanding in our conversations today. So please be that for one another. So we wanted to just put you into pairs in some rooms for just 5 minutes or so, 8 minutes, so that you can get to know some other folks that are here today. And we'll ask you to just discuss what Maggie's invited us to think about. So what are some of the context-based vocabulary for reconciliation or other words that you might use where you are? And how does that relate to your work? So what are what's the sum of the context-based vocabulary for reconciliation that you use where you are? Okay. Kevin will send us off and we'll see you back here soon.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you had some interesting and fruitful conversation. No, we weren't in breakout rooms for too long, but we do have some time to kind of share anything that was talked about in the breakout rooms, potentially around different words that came up that have similar meanings or different meanings, or perhaps you want to share something new that you learned from the other person. I just wanted to invite any sharing at this time. We have a few minutes.
I can start if you want.
Thank you, Stefan. That would be great.
Just to be icebreaker.
Thank you.
In our group, what I felt is that there are plenty words: integration, inclusive policy, reconciliation. I mean, there are a number of words, but used in very different contexts, used in very different ways. There are also the fact that we don't have the same cultural models. For instance, here in France, we've got a model based not on community, but on universality, which makes things quite different. There is also the fact that there is when you use words like social justice, those words have different intensity depending on the context. For instance, if you use social justice here in France, it can feel more aggressive for many conservative people. But if you use inclusion, then it becomes more appropriated. So there is also it's not only about the vocabularies, but it's also the way those words are received by people in our different contexts. But talking about reconciliation, it was interesting to see that in France we talk about reconciliation, about the reconciliation between Germany and France after the World War II. In Germany, someone said that it was reconciliation between the two Germanys, from West and East. So that's why it's so interesting to see that the same words are used in very different contexts.
Thank you for that, Stefan. I have just learned so much about 3 different words from that 60-second explanation. So merci. Yeah, similarly here, the terms like inclusivity, social justice are received in different ways and can be very politically charged. Absolutely. So thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to share what they talked about?
Don't be shy.
I'm a teacher, so I usually wait 8 seconds to 15 seconds. I'm okay with silence.
In our group, we had a small group of, I think there were 4 of us, and there was an echo in the idea of approaching the work with humility, cultural humility, leadership humility, and that seemed to be a strong theme in our discussion.
Thank you for that, Francisca. I think that's an excellent something to hold with us, absolutely, as we continue today and our sessions together. And something that I was just joking that I am a teacher, and something that I bring up with my planning students quite often when I teach about the British Columbia context in Canada around reconciliation and what it means to do this type of work. Thank you. That sounds like a good transition maybe over to Stefan to lead us into the next part of our time together. And thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Maggie, for this great ice-breaking moment. I'm really happy now to introduce Isabelle. The very first time I knew about Isabelle was because of Thomas, who is somewhere in the audience. I think he told me about Isabelle 6 months ago, and he told me that there were somewhere in France a project of a new a group of people, including researchers, teachers, and citizens in a French region, were working on a new regional model based on well-being, but also cultural driven. And I found it really interesting. And then I met Isabelle. We didn't meet for real, but we had a few conversations by phone and Zoom. And I realized that that would be the perfect case for because I had a lot of conversation with Lindsay about reconciliation in Canada, but I found difficult to find things. I mean, there are many projects in France, but I really think that we got a challenge with overseas territory here in France, and I found that the case run by Isabelle was really inspiring. So Isabelle, the scene is yours. And you got 25 minutes to make a presentation, and then I think we got some time to ask you a few questions afterwards. But Isabelle, it's yours. I think
You
Isabelle,
can't hear me.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Can somebody run the slides for me?
Yeah, Lindsay will do
Yes,
that.
I'm doing that. Just tell me when it's time to go to the next slide, Isabelle.
Okay, so thank you. So here thank you for welcoming me. So here you have a picture of a beautiful island. So welcome. I'm so glad to welcome you from all over the world and to have the opportunity to present you the work that I've done for 10 years now. So I am Isabelle Huet, and I'm a native Creole Reunionese, and I've worked as a teacher for years in Reunion, and now I'm dedicating my time fully to working on cultural and identity resilience in collaboration with researchers to advance the issue. Next slide, please. So we will, so the Creole Reunionese model is a unique model in the world, which was built in tension with France. We will start with a contextual overview of Reunion history so that you can fully understand the purpose of the demonstration. Next slide, please. So Reunion is a unique model by many aspects, especially regarding the social model. When France colonized the island in 1663 and officially in 1665, the aim was to make it a profitable colony and then a slave colony to increase profit. The island grew coffee, spices. It was an agricultural granary for the Indian Ocean. But the colony was so far away from France that there were not so many women on the territory. So the Malagasy women were not slaves at first, but the white man companion and mother of the children. So the children grew up mixed race and free. So it was not what France wanted Reunion to be, but it was really built in tension with what France expected from the colony. Next slide, please. So when France started to impose the codification of slavery in the colony in the 1680s, 20 years later, and the Black Code afterwards, it became forbidden by royal ordinance that a white man should marry a black woman. They said it was a confusion to be avoided, but it was far too late, in fact. Many women were considered slaves only for administrative purposes. And so in the colony, there were no profound racial theory, you see, no racist ideology on the island. It's racism, is something we did not experience at first in the colony. So you see, the slave system was really put to the test by the Reunionese model. Next slide, please. So color, the color of the skin color and origins in Reunion did not determine the social status. Reunion is a unique model in the world in that way, because in the island, some descendants of black slave owners who had children, they grew up free and were raised by the masters, and I'm sorry, I'm a little stressed. So many men who had children with black women, they acknowledge their children, and very often and sometimes the black children became slave owners themselves. You see, it's a very original a model that is very unique in the world. And the black women who married black men, once they married a white man, they were registered as white. You see, so they became white by marriage. And the best part is the law of genetics in Reunion that made that a woman who had she's black, she has a white child, but the child becomes enslaved, become a slave like his mother. In Reunion, we had slaves who were white Creoles. That was a very unique model in the world. And this confusion led to very difficult situation for people on the island, And at the time, it was only the notaries who recorded who was white and who was black, because the skin color didn't determine it, didn't tell it. You say, do you understand? Okay. The next slide, please. Next slide, please. Can you run the slide? Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm just going to, yeah. Can you read the slide? You see that's an example of what happened. It's a traveler in Reunion Island who shows what happened in Reunion in 1859. He calls the girls the white negress, you know, because the slaves couldn't wear shoes. So, and he also denounces the fact that many slave owners, the women, pushed those white negress into prostitution. Okay, next slide, please. Also, on the previous slide, sorry, I just forgot one thing. Just to show one thing, you know, the case of the Ranga sisters in Reunion, you know, there are 3 sisters, and they are for the administration. One is black, one is free of color, and one is white because she married a white man. You see, that led to confusion. Next slide, please. Next one, please. Okay. And to illustrate the case on that painting too, you see it is a satire by the French. You know, the French officers came to the island to review the white militia. And the white militia was supposed to be accessible to great Creole families. And in fact, they were surprised that the whiteness of the soldiers were questionable, as you see on the painting. Next slide, please. Here are the Reunionese communities, the different cultural groups that live here in Reunion Island. You see, the Reunionese population was formed by successive waves of population coming from all over the world, from Europe and from Africa, from slaves who were imported from all over the world too. And the different communities still exist today. Okay. So the Kaf, you see, are African descents. The Yab are poor whites. The poor whites is also a category that is very specific to Reunion Island, because in a slave society, you know, whites are rich and blacks are poor. But in Reunion, the poor whites, they had the right color, but they were sometimes poorer than slaves. Because after the abolition of slavery in 1848 in Reunion, some slaves had competencies that poor whites didn't have. And they were left with no means of subsistence. The Gros Blancs are the rich settlers. The Malabar are the indentured laborers of Indian origins. You know, they were imported into the island after the abolition of slavery to replace the slaves in the plantation. The Chinese also. The Zarab are also the traders from the north of India. And the Zorey are officials from France. They came after 1946 to catch up with the delay, the economic delay. Okay, next slide, please. So that's an important date. Reunion becomes a French department. And that was a change in civilization for the Reunionese. Before that, Reunion was a French colony. And when Réunion became a French department, it means that it became equal to France in terms of laws, of allocations, of assistance. Next slide, please. Yeah, on this picture, you can see how Réunion needed that assistance. You see, the people of Réunion were really poor, and on the picture you can see also the multi culturalism and that they come from different backgrounds. Here you can see the Yap, the poor whites who live in the highlands in Réunion Island. Next slide, please. Here you can see the how they live in huts, in straw huts, and it was very poor. They were very poor, and you can imagine when the cyclone season arrived, how it could be very difficult for them. Next slide, please. You can. And gradually, modernity came with when Réunion became a French department. Next slide, please. Next slide, please, just to give you an overview of what it looks like. So that's Réunion today. Okay, that's the town hall, the city hall in Saint-Denis, the capital city. Next slide, please. So it's a very, very modern place now. In less than 15 years, we have gone through a development that in other countries they did for 250 years. How it was in France, that the process, after the revolution, it was very long before they got that development, which was in Réunion so fast. You see the multicultural, the religion, the different religion. Next one, please. Okay, so you as I told you that when Réunion became a French department, it was really a gift because we needed it. But there was a shift in the value system without the Réunionnese being actors in the change. And that was very difficult for them. Before 1946, before Réunion became a French department, Réunion had its own way of functioning. It was predominantly agricultural with a Creole language, its own way of imagining the world, of living, of thinking. But after it became a French department, France imposed new conditions. History was new. French history was taught at school. The language changed. It became French. And the imagination shifted from the Indian Ocean to France. So law, life, rules, relationships to the land, to religion, to parents, to food, to work, everything was altered. Next slide, please. Next one. So Robert Ezra Parks, who is an influential American sociologist, says that when we radically transform the stable, cyclical, and predictable ecosystem environment of individuals, it forces the individual to transform themselves just as radically to adapt to this new environment. And it is important to say that the departmentalized society asserted itself through violence. It was really a violent period of time because the there were two blocks confronting. It was because at the time the Communist Party, the Reunionist Communist Party, had convinced people, and so the society was divided into two blocks that confronted each other very violently. But the party that was supported by France had the support of the entire administration and the church. The violence and electoral fraud were justified by reasons of state. So in this new society, there were those who were excluded because they didn't speak the language. They didn't speak French. That was the language spoken by 90% of the population. The language, the Creole language that the many descendants of slaves spoke. So there were academic failures, loss of value, and a feeling of shame, complex of inferiority, and loss of confidence, and they feel excluded from their own country. There were those who integrated in the system. They speak the language and adapt to the mold to find employment within the French system. They internalized into the dominant system, and they also internalized the fact that they were inferior to that to that system, and they needed to adjust to feel like an individual, to find confidence. So they exclude those who don't integrate because they have worked hard to integrate, you see. And they were the resistance who opposed the new system, but they were assaulted, harassed, and deported. So many of them have become very opposed or completely silent. And that new system, in fact, led division in the Creole society. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
You got 10 minutes, around 10 minutes to finish your beautiful and great presentation.
Oh my, oh my. So, okay. Yes. So what are the problems today? Next slide, please. So the main current issues you see, the violence, alcoholism, diseases, poverty. We are less than 1 million. We are 840,000 people, and you can see the numbers. The employment rate in Reunion is 49%. It means all the rest is not employed. I'll let you have a look at the slide afterwards. So next slide, please. So there are also the main current issues are the increasing social tension. And you see the differences. There are many. The difference in cost of living with mainland France is huge. The CAF population, the descendants of the Black population, is still very poor. There's a high tension between the French descendants and the Creoles. There's a lot of discussion over the Creole language. Next slide, please. So what led me here, I went through a cultural shock, an identity shock when I was in South Africa, in Africa. I attended a Congress, Africa's Own Congress, and I witnessed the pride of the numerous African nations that were invited to that Congress. And I realized at that moment that I didn't know who I was. I didn't know if I had any history, any poets, any writers, and that I started to read books, but I couldn't find in books my history, And I realized that there were two histories in Reunion. One that it was told by the historian, but my history was not available, accessible to the methodology of the historian. And I needed to go and meet groups to understand, to talk to people who felt like me. Next one, please. Thank you. The Isopolis is a project that was led in Reunion. I had the opportunity to I'm sorry, I just need to
Take your time, it's fine.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No pressure.
So
You're with friend, Isabelle.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I worked for a project that was called Isopolis that was trying to test innovative project on the island, and the Isopolis project gave me the opportunity to put at a test what I was doing, but in an official way, because I was working alone all this time. And I joined the Isopolis project for 20 months. And I was able to lead that experimentation, and experimentation means the project and its evaluation. And to work with researchers. I worked with, it was a training with the National Center for Public Workers. And I worked on 4 groups of 17 people over 20 months, which was the duration of the project. So it was called at first Becoming a People, but it was, the identity is such is a taboo here. So we had to rename it, retitle it History of Reunion, a Cultural Approach to Resilience. And I worked also on with a group, excuse me, a group that I facilitated over the 20 months. And in this group, there were people who belong to different worlds. Next slide, please. So it's very difficult for me, I'm sorry. The Isopolis group was, there were people from the economic world, from the social, from the public workers, civil society, and researchers. And I needed to confront their views of culture, how they feel or how they felt about culture, because they work in silos. They work separately, and we had that opportunity with that group to understand and see how they and to connect those different worlds. There was a researcher who worked with me through the experiment, and this group, it was very difficult to lead this group because there were so much tensions, because everyone had different views, different understandings of culture. The training is a mix of history, sociology, anthropology, and literature over 3 days. I wanted the trainees to live and feel the training. I wanted that it should not be solely intellectual. I added poetry and skills and humorous texts so that they would know their authors. There's many people in the session who told me I was not in training but in therapy, because that helped them to understand who they are. And it was like the first time they had that space and opportunity to speak freely, and that a safe place to express themselves on the subject of identity. Next one, please. So here are an extract from the report, from the evaluation report that was made by Thomas Delahaye, who is present tonight. So here he describes the triggers that happened during that was after the session. There were interviews after 6 weeks led by the researchers. So they said they understand that there's a lack of knowledge. They saw the lasting impact of history on identity and the importance of knowing. And trigger number 4, the need for cultural resilience in the territory. Next one, please. You see, at first, we wanted to initiate changes in their work and within the community, but in fact, the triggers were more individual. And that training allowed us to collaborate with science, with researchers, and to lead to, you know, there's the researcher in the group who worked with me who told me that she stayed in the group even if it was sometimes very difficult, because she could really have a deep understanding of what was going on the territory in that group, you see. Next one, please. And here are the limits of the training, you know, the short format, because the trainees asked for more time because they needed to talk. They needed to talk. And, you know, there's one session at once that I wasn't able to do 1/3 of the session because of the training, because they needed so much to talk. I just couldn't stop them from speaking, from talking. So, and they also talked about the taboos in the society. The taboos for it's very difficult to talk about identity in Reunion Island. Many people don't want to talk about it because they say, you know, I got angry with my father or my stepsister or stepfather because of that, so I'm not interested. I don't want to talk about it, you know. And finally, they all wanted to commit and to get involved in the project afterwards, and many came to the groups, to the Isopolis group, to help, to do something because they needed to act. Next one, please. So the scoping review that was made during the project is available to you if you want to have a look. Here are you know, the different groups, what shows is the shock on a personal level, the desire to act, the desire for appeasement, the desire to co-construct and to support the youth and the children for tomorrow. Next one, please. So that's also something I wanted to share, is the silence, in the weight of silence. You know, the fact that we don't want to talk, we don't want to talk about history, is a problem for the younger generation, because there's a silence about history, about who they are, about the violence of history, about poverty, about their condition, about their social injustices, about the contradictions, you know, the contradictions about Creole pride, for example, about the encouraged but despised use of the language. In the invisible, in fact, they feel that discomfort, and the blame is placed on certain cultural groups, mainly the Zorey in Reunion Island, you see, and that divides us as a people. Next one, please. So we're finishing, and that's so that's what we need to continue. How to support the post-training phase, how to support awareness and harness the desire to co-create, you know, to foster an authentic dialogue, and to promote kindness, listening and sharing, you know, in order to take action, because people want to take action. And so it really needs administrative and political support to go further. Okay, next one. Next one, please.
The next one say thank you, but I think it's us that should say thank you to you, because really you did a great job, and that was very generous from you to do that. I think we all feel the privilege.
That was very...
No, really, I mean it. I mean, even here in France, we don't know this history. So that's really a privilege that you gave us. Lindsay, do you think we got time for a few questions? Yeah?
Yeah.
Maybe I can start. And even just to mention, the former minister in charge of overseas territory is there. He's called Christian Paul. I should not name it, but he said it's fascinating. Salut, Christian. I have a question for you, Isabelle. What would you say about the connection between La Réunion, the island of La Réunion, and France? What are the connection between the people living in France, the people from La Réunion, the families living in France, and what are the challenge? Are there challenges around that? I don't know if my question is clear.
What's the link between?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about population living in the island of La Réunion, but there are many people of La Réunion living in France as a territory.
Yes.
What are the challenges around that? How many? Can you give a value to this connection? How many people? How many families? Or I don't know.
You know, in the 80s, many people, many Reunionists left the island because they wanted to forget about Reunion. They wanted to forget about the miserable background they came from. They were really ashamed of their history. So, you know, there was the community, the French, the Creole community that lives in France today was created in those years. And many left to look for job, to look for work, to try to flee the difficult conditions, but many feel ashamed of their history because they don't know their history. You know, we in Reunion, the problem is that we don't know who we are. When we say I'm today, you know, I don't know the term, the right term to say métissage, you know, mixed racing. What do you say? It's not easy. So mixed racing, mixed race is today. It's like fashionable. Everyone feels mixed race. It's fashionable. But what happened before? What made that you know, that mixed racing possible? What is the story behind? And that is the problem. Is that it's like we want to make something, you know, pure and beautiful before, but we haven't, you know, gone through that process of resilience, you know, that needs to be done. And the people who left for France, you know, many don't, they realize who they are. Thank you, Mr. Generation. Wait. They don't know, many don't know who they are, you know, those who live there, and they realize that they have a culture, that they have a history, that they have an identity when they leave. Because when we are on the territory, many feel very, you know, ashamed. I have, you know, lived that shame for such a long time, and I didn't know why I felt so small, so ashamed, so unable to succeed, to be someone, you know, because I didn't know who I was. I didn't know my history. But when I got to know, it was not that beautiful, you know. But there were things that were so beautiful and strong, and that made me, that gave me that strength that I needed today to be here. For example, I would never have been able to talk to you, you know, 10 years ago. You see, so with France, there's that kind of love and hate relationship, just like with ourselves, just like with our language. You know, it's like for the language, when somebody critiques, is criticizing your language, you're just, you know, you can be very aggressive, but you do it all the time. We doing it all the time, you know. And there's that kind of love and hate relationship. And with France is the same. We love France, but there are so many things that need to be said today, that need to be, you know, the things that we need to talk about. And if we do speak, we have everything to gain by breaking the silence. But it is, you know, the trouble is that we are afraid of the fire, you know, you know, that the period of time that is very difficult to handle. But afterwards, there's an innovative phase, steps that will allow us to blossom together. But now we are afraid of that, because, and I, in the groups, you know, the groups that I worked with, they went from, you know, the most identity focused people to the people who were, you know, citizens of the world. And citizen, I'm a citizen of the world, is you know, a fashionable word to say, that we don't know who we are, and we don't want to talk about identity. Everyone is a reunionist, everything is perfect, no problem, you see. And that's, you know, the two blocks in Reunion, that they are the two discourses, identity discourses, that oppose today in Reunion, you see. And today we have to find a third way, something to find a place, safe place, where the Reunionese man and woman can blossom, can strive, and by being himself, by knowing who he is and the difficulties, but also, you know, the you know, how to say that, there are things that are in fact beautiful, because we are today we are well known in the world to be a role model for of coexistence, a model of coexistence, of living together in the world. But today this model is really in danger, And if we don't speak, if we don't talk to each other, if we don't break that silence, today, the last crisis of the yellow vest, you've heard about that in France. And in Reunion, that crisis really frightened me, because I realized really at that time that racism was increasing in Reunion, while we have not experimented racism in the genesis of our history. But now it is because we don't know anymore our history. We don't know who we are, and we are, opposing with the French descent, the oreilles. They are, like we are placing all the difficulties on that category of people. While when we say we are a people, we say CAF, Chinois, Chinese, Arab, oreilles, Comor, and we say oreilles. So they are one people with us, but we don't remember, we don't know our common history. And so we talk, and we are starting to go into division. I don't know if it's clear what I'm saying. Yeah.
It's absolutely clear. Lindsay, do you want that we shift to the next stage with these rich cases and story?
I think so, unless anybody else has any questions for Isabelle. It would be great to see you again. If you're comfortable with joining us, it would be great to see you. So please do that. Stefan, are you still happy with our questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to introduce the first one?
Yeah, maybe you can show the slides for my memory.
Oh, I'll read it so that we can see each other
Okay.
instead of looking at the slides again. I'll read it, and maybe we'll put it in the chat. So the first, we've got, as a reminder, we have 3 discussion questions to help us. Thank you, Isabelle. I want to say thank you from me also. That was such an interesting story, and I think the way that you spend the time to tell this, to situate the work that you're doing is the work. I just want to name that really obviously. Like, there's these programs that we run as people who do innovation work in the public sector. We run programs and we solve problems and we, make interventions. And I think the way that you situated Isopolis in that rich context, and in telling we use truth and reconciliation language here in Canada. You can't get to the reconciliation work without the truth work. And I think that you were really telling us about what that looks like in where you are in your home place. And so I just really want to say thank you for that. Also, so the discussion question that we have, the first one is about responsibility. So do we think that public sector innovators of all types, if you identify as that, have that in your job title, try and practice that in secret, that's why we're all here. So do we think that as public sector innovators, as public innovators, do we have a responsibility to work toward reconciliation, contextually appropriate reconciliation, no matter what it is that our innovation work is focused on? Is this contextually appropriate reconciliation work? Should it be a part of it? Must it be a part of it?
So I can launch the conversation, but in a very humble way. I don't know if I can say interesting things just after Isabelle, to be honest. So I will be very modest. I mean, when you ask this question, another way to ask this question between the correlation between, do you think that public sector innovators have a responsibility? I think there is another way to ask this question, which is there a correlation between the growing anger because of all kind of exclusion and the current model of public services? And I think there is a connection. If you take the example that if you take the yellow vest or yellow jacket movement that Isabelle talked about, or if you take the last huge violent riots in suburban areas this summer in France, it's really difficult to analyze what happened. But in each case, it was partly because of the shrinking public services. the fact that the state is shrinking the presence of public services. It's also so there is a link between the model of public services in this space and the growing anger. And there are two reasons for that. The first one is that I really believe that many public innovation produce exclusion. If you take online services, for instance, both the French Parliament, many research, many reports say that there is an exclusion problem with online services. And there are intense debate at the French Parliament now to try to find against, because in the same time that we create online services, we cancel, we get public position disappear. So there is a great debate around that. And yes, so I really believe that there is no I mean, how can public innovators feel not concerned by that? Because there is innovation is never neutral. So every time as an innovator, you take part to the design of a new policy or a new public innovation, the effect of your action is never neutral. So I can't understand how public innovators can be concerned by this. So that was my poor launching. I don't know if someone has a reaction to that, or even if Isabelle, you want to react, or because in your case, Isabelle, what's interesting is I think it was difficult for you to connect with public services in La Réunion, to convince them to change the way they do public services. Maybe you can also react.
Yeah, in fact, it was very difficult because, you know, the people, the public sector is the one who got integrated, you know, in the different parts we talked about, those who were excluded, they integrated. And so they speak French, they are well assimilated, you know, they got a job in the system, and they're completely inside, you know. And very often when they do, for example, for culture, that's something that I noticed and I wanted to talk about with them. And when they implement, you know, new how to say that, you know, new things, new projects on the territory. They are projects that they take from France, from mainland France, and that they duplicate in Reunion Island because they think that's the right thing to do. And but they don't, because they don't know, in fact, the territory. Many of them don't know enough, don't talk enough, don't speak enough, are not connected enough with the territory. So very often they bring projects and then they are disappointed. Why do not do the Reunionese? Why don't they come to the project, the cultural project that they put in place, you know? And very often, you know, they start project in museum or in places that are dedicated to culture. But in Reunion, that was not the way it was. Culture was, you know, in the under the tree, in the community, people shared very differently. In fact, people are not used to going into a dedicated place to pay and to you know, to consume culture. That's not something they were used to. And so sometimes they don't understand why it doesn't work. But it doesn't work because there's not that it lacks that connection. And you know, when I started working with the public sector, the team of the national center was so intrigued by the feedbacks given by the trainees that they wanted to to attend the training. So the training for the team, the training for the national center team was organized on February this year, and so they were some people were invited to come, but you know, at the round table at the beginning of the training, I just wanted to know who they were and why they were here, you know, for the training. And some of them just told me that I was asked to come. I'm not interested. I have no problem with my identity. I have nothing to do here. No. And because identity is really a problem, you know, they are afraid of that. And finally, at the you know, in the middle of the beginning of the morning, they were so happy, so, you know, so into it, so glad to share that. And so it came, you know, they were really a piece that they didn't expected, you know, to feel that way about identity.
Any other reaction, comments, ideas?
Stefan, there's something from Thomas in the chat that maybe I'll just ask everyone. So he's asking the question of what is good, and good in quotation marks, public innovation in the cultural context of Reunion, but what is it maybe in the cultural context of where each of us are? Is this bringing up things for people about what good means, what good public innovation means where you are? I'd love to hear if anybody has any reflections on that. I think Thomas is in transit, so maybe can't say anything out loud, but if you can, even on audio, please jump in. Oh, there you are. No, he cannot. Nice to see your face. Any reflections on that? What is good public innovation in your context?
Maybe it would be...
People are shy today, Stefan.
Yeah, people are shy. Maybe it would be interesting to build some archetypes of innovators, public innovators, because we know that there is not one single portrait of public innovators, and each of them have different ethics, vision of what is progress. I won't mention solution-based innovators or problem-based innovators or digital-based innovators, but you got these different cultures of innovation in all our countries. So it's maybe, and maybe this is something for the next question or the next prompt, but how do you develop an ethic of public innovation that gets you obliged to be more reflexive about this, the direction that you are taking, and the values, the question of values connected to innovation. There is something in France in the field of digital design called ethic by design, which is a huge thinking about how do we reduce the risk of digital consumption, digital hyper consumption, how do we get more ethical when we build websites, etc. But it's interesting to see that there is not the same at the larger level in public innovation, for instance. So there is no debate about ethics in the public innovation world, neither at the national state, or there are some good principle or good practice, but those practices are never connected to values or ethics. So there are many taboos, as Isabelle say. I really like the name of the idea of taboos. There are things that are seen as taboos that we don't dare talk about because it would be boring, or it would take time or whatever. But yeah, I think in all our country we've got different archetypes, different portraits of public innovators.
I know, so there are many colleagues and friends here from North America, and even specifically from BC. I don't want to call anybody in, but I would love just to hear a little bit. Oh, thanks, Lily. I would love to hear just a little bit from here. Like, let's be generous with our sharing from our place here where we are back to our friends and colleagues in France, because I know for me in my own practice, some of the things that Isabelle was sharing with bringing up lots of differences and parallels and you know, inspirations also from the ways that we're talking about our context-based work here. So please, someone from this part of the world. Hey, there you are.
Okay, so
Coloring
I'm in
it.
transit to UBC. So whoever is, I'm supposed to be there on time, but I'm not going to be on time. First of all, Isabelle, merci. Merci. Thank you.
Merci à vous.
And it was so moving. It's so moving because you had to do it all in English, first of all, about your own culture, about all the difficulties of bringing it, of revealing it to the world and to us as you're helping your own people to find themselves. All of that is so profound. I wish you could do it in French again, paid, so that it could be more widely, you know, spread within France. So that is my first one and the most important. Second is the notion of friendship. My experience, personal, of doing reconciliation work, which is the work of letting the laws of the land reveal themselves, because they've always been here. They're just hiding in rooms of the local indigenous people who are here, and they're my friends. And there's one particular friendship in my workplace with a woman who's Haida, which means she's from the northern tribes of BC and the First Nations. And she's a colleague and a leader. Her name is Rena. And at my place of work, which is parks planning, and here in Vancouver. And I tell you, it's through our work together and through the friendship of me as an immigrant to Canada who's Portuguese, with all the baggage that comes from being Portuguese and having been brainwashed into thinking that the discoveries were good. From parent teachers, my dad and my mom were teaching this history. And to being able to work with her every day and support her. And sometimes, and it's a dance of, sometimes I just create the space for her to be on stage. Sometimes she's not able to, so I'm the one on stage. And so I hope, and this is more of a comment to you and a yearning, that friendship is keeping you going, because this is very hard work.
Thank you so much.
This is really beautiful and hard work every day, because your work and your identity is all the same. You can never unplug. And so I do hope that you find ways to unplug from the confusion that you just explained, which was incredible. Oh my God. I just hope that Rena can go back to that confusion, which was so healthy. That blend. Oh, sorry, I'm crying, but holy
Yes,
crap.
I really hope that our people can see that this confusion, in fact, is our strength. And you know, many people in the world now are experimenting the you know, the creolization of the world, and also the coexistence and living together. And we have been experimenting that for 360 years now. So I really would like my people to to understand and to realize that we are somewhat ahead and we have things to share. But first we need to go beyond the fear, the shame, and the inferiority complex that is driving us back, and making that 51% of people are out of job today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Katerina. Drive safely. I just want to share something from Lily in the chat, Isabelle, to make sure that you saw that. So Lily, who's also here in this part of the world where I am, says her father's Creole from New Orleans, Louisiana in the US, which is an identity that never felt like it made sense in other parts of the country where identities are so segregated. And the type of coexisting, mixing didn't exist many other places in the US. I can resonate with all the complexities you shared around identity and the different racial and linguistic categories being imposed on people as the colonial regimes changed over time. So I just wanted to make sure that you saw that, Isabelle.
Thank you, Lily, for sharing.
Anyone else want to join us?
And just if I can add something, when you said what is a good public innovation, I just thought that it is in fact for me when people can listen, can talk, when the different worlds can communicate, can listen to each other. And if you can communicate, if the public sector can listen to the soil, to listen to people who are living on the territory, and who are supposed to receive the work that they are producing, if they can listen, and if the people feel legitimate to tell them what they need, if there's communication, that would be good public sector innovation,
Thanks, Isabelle.
Maybe just to trying to go further, and you say you use training as a way to do this. What if you could go further than training, in terms of format, in terms of tools, in terms of concrete actions? What would be your proposal? I think there is a question or a reaction from Katuna also. Katuna, do you want to react? We can't hear you.
Yes, I'm sorry. My connection might not be stable, but thank you very much. I've been following this series, and I mean, this is the second one I'm attending. And Isabelle, thank you very much. It was really moving and very much in resonance. I come from the country of Georgia, which is in Caucasus. And it's a small country with a very strong identity as a nation. But a lot of people throughout the past 20, 30 years have left the country, and they are spread all around Europe. And in some way, it resonated with me when I was reflecting that my people will also have similar identity crisis at some point when their children are born and then develop. But this is a long conversation. It was very emotional to listen to you, because we also, in our throughout the history, we have managed to combine to allow for different religions and different nations to live cohabitate throughout the ages. And it's an extremely interesting aspect to explore. But I would go back to what good civil service innovator might be. Our context would differ because we are now rebuilding the statehood. So whatever we are creating, we are not demolishing something old, but rather making the civil service to be like we would want it to be. So we have one of the exemplary civil services, public service center that allows people to access 46 different services in one single space. But at the same time, there are myriads of things that needs to be done and covered and still to be accomplished. But one example I can give is that in one of the regions, I work for UNDP, and I support public sector innovation from UNDP end. So one of the projects that we were supporting was working with the municipalities, and usually the usual mode of conducting workshops is to bring a mediator, like facilitator, and have in the room only the representatives of a certain region. And the difference that made was that instead of the workshop, the organizing team decided to bring the civil servants from the capital to the training room, and they just allowed for the conversation to flow. And that was the most profound thing, because people were saying that, you know, we realized that civil servants are actually trying to do lots. It's just that they don't hear our voice, and we do not see what they have been all this while trying to accomplish. So I would very much agree that innovation or progress is very much a conversation. And the best innovator is the one who creates the space and allows different parties to present themselves, to have their identity seen in a way. This refers to both people who would like to have change, representatives of different groups, as well as the civil servants themselves, the public sector themselves. So that's the reflection I would have. And thank you very much for creating this particular space, which is very, very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Katuna. Lindsay, you had a question for Isabelle, I think.
I do, but I'm seeing there's a couple of comments in the slides, so maybe I'll just bring a few of those in to see, Isabelle, if you want to respond to anything here. So someone has written, to move forward, the current public sector must acknowledge its past actions, transformations, historical omissions, and the things it has made invisible. As Isabelle has said, silence is heavy, and recognizing and acknowledging institutional mistreatment is a responsibility of the public sector. Being able to consider them from now on in the public sector is a responsibility. So public sector innovators have to work on how to integrate these issues, provide tools, reveal the differences, embrace them, to connect things that happen locally, but that not everyone feels, so that the agents or the administration in the public sector can be able to see and care for every side and to see what coexists, bad or good, and understand others.
I like the idea of history of public policies, for instance. We got a format at La 27e Région called the Little History of Big Public Policy, which is a reminder of the past of public policies, where they come from, what they were, why they were launched, what were the values. And because we had the feeling that there was no memory of the past of public policies. And considering this session, maybe we could improve this format by developing all the effect, all the impacts in terms of social justice, for instance, or because it's for the moment it's mostly a description of the history. But we feel that many public innovators are not very familiar about the history of the policies they are working on. They are 25 years old, 30 years old, 35 or even more, but they have no memory of this history. So maybe this is something we could improve every time we work on the public policies.
Maybe I'll ask Isabelle, one more question. I know you're probably getting tired of the English, Isabelle, so I appreciate you.
No. I really appreciate if you just can, when there are many things, if you just can put it in one question so that I can better answer.
So mine is about where are you now? I mean, I was interested I think a lot about evaluation also, and how do you evaluate things that are really hard to measure, like the things that you're talking about. So you ran this program and you did the evaluation, and I'm wondering what's next for you in this work.
Honestly, I don't know, because it's very difficult for me sometimes, because when I give the training, when I realized how powerless sometimes the workers, the public sector workers, feel, because many of them don't know their history. That's the problem in Reunion. As the history in Reunion taught is the French history. When you see the Black children reciting our ancestors, the Gauls, they've learned things that they don't understand, and we've learned a history that we need to complete. And many of the public workers need the training to know who they are, to know their history, so that they can better guide and help, because many feel powerless, and because they work so hard, but they can't see the results, and people are always discontent. They're not happy with what is made, and they don't understand why. And in the groups, that was very interesting, because the tensions were so strong, because people had very, when you talk about culture, for example, for the public sector, culture means the performing arts, and for the reunionists, culture means their food, their language, what they eat, how they talk to their relationship with the elders, etc. and etc. So the next step, I really would like to. I need the decision makers for help, because at one point I wanted to stop the trainings, because there was so many people, there was the word of mouth, people knew about the session and wanted to participate, and there were so many requests, and so every session had to be doubled and tripled, because there were so many people who wanted to attend. But at one point, I could see that I had triggered such a turmoil inside. So the people, and I was wondering, what can I do for them afterwards? Some people, they could in fact manage it, because they went through a process of resilience. The 3 steps of resilience. They know, they accept history, and then they can go beyond and do consciously, act consciously. but some of them were left in you know, it was still difficult for them when they left the room, and that was very difficult for me. And you know, I remember that man once, he was so introverted, so closed off, and during the first day he didn't say a word, and I was he was stunned, and I didn't know what to do. I was what did I do to him? You know, I was like very, and but you know, on the second day during the round table, he couldn't stop speaking. He told us that he had to talk to his mother, to his father, to his children, to his family. He needed to exteriorate so many things, and he recognized himself so much, and he recognized also his traumas and what in his blockages, you know, why he was blocked. And that was amazing, fantastic for me. But sometimes, you know, I just don't know what I can do for, you know, the after. But I mean, what I really would like, it would be to create an observatory. Is that the right term? Observatory for coexistence, for living together, you know, in Reunion Island, so that we can, you know, continue and to work with the researchers, with the different worlds, and to work together and you know, live the in microcosm what will happen in the macrocosm outside, you see. And so we can practice, and so we can see and find solutions, and know how we can keep on and guide those who the public sectors who are, you know, following the training. And so after, so what do we do afterwards, you know, because it stops there. I know that many of them you know, change their ways. There's a woman who, for example, told me that she stopped straightening her hair. Another one told me that she, you know, in her job, she works in a library, and you know, the local section was at the back, and she put it at the front because she wants people now to read, to know their history, because now she's convinced that her history is good. And you know, it changes things. But I really need to see, to witness what's happening next, because I'm you know, I know I'm triggering things that are very emotional, you know.
Thank you, Isabelle. I think now we are close to the end of this session. Maybe I have a last question for you, but maybe a quick answer. Do you connect your work with something that has been voted in France in 2015 called the cultural rights, les droits culturels? Because it's really near what it's shifting from the right to cultural access, to the access to culture, to cultural rights, which is recognizing the rights for anybody to respect its own culture, etc., etc. Is it something that you you connect with?
Yes, there was a conference here last year about the subject, but the problem here is the same, is that people don't connect to it because we are still so you know, we are so opposed. Some people are, you know, we are so convinced that the Reunionese history, that Reunionese identity is not good, because that's what we integrated. That now they don't want to know about that. You see, it's something we have to change in the Reunionese. There's no barrier now for us to have, because France allows the law. You know, we have an open boulevard. I don't know how to say that, but it's the key, the blockage is in our minds now. And we have to free ourselves in our minds.
But just for your information, Canadian friends, and we got a regulation that obliged local government to respect people's cultural rights since a few years. And there is a lot of confusion with this regulation, and notably the fact that many people think that it's only available in cultural policies. But in fact, it should be applied in all kind of policies. So it's the fact that in any kind of policy, we must respect the cultural identity of any people, and notably minorities. So that could be interesting to see how we could reactivate this regulation, because there are many people who are working on this in France. I think that was a fantastic presentation, Isabelle, and you've seen the effect that you. No, that was absolutely perfect. I want our friend in Canada to see that we are moving people and sensitive and that we have many things to say to the world. What I must tell you is that you will find the recording file of this session in a few days or weeks, I guess, Lindsay. And our next meeting will be in January, but we don't know exactly when. Maybe late January, maybe early February. We do our best to tell you the date as soon as we can. But for sure we will meet again for the next session. And maybe someone can put the file of the program so that you can find the description of the program for those who don't really know it. Yeah, thanks again. Thanks, Lindsay, and all the Canadian community for this great session, and see you next time. Anything you want to add, Lindsay?
No. Take good care, everybody, and enjoy whatever you're going to be celebrating or resting over the next few weeks, and we'll see you in the new year. Thank you,
Great.
Isabelle.
Merci, Isabelle. C'était super.
Merci beaucoup, Isabelle.
Merci, c'était génial.
Merci à vous. Thank you for organizing that.
On se reparle bientôt, Isabelle. On se reparle dans les jours ou les semaines qui viennent, d'accord?
Avec plaisir.
Ouais.
Thank you.
Merci,
Thomas.
Merci.
Thomas, c'était le voyageur, c'était le passager clandestin.
C'est quoi,